Now, Georgia, what's the latest out of Athens? It's very early on. Very, very early on. They're still installing the offense, but all the intel as of right now is pointing to a one Gunner Stockton winning that job when it's time for them to actually play football games that count. And this isn't a surprise to anybody. I think a lot of people would assume he's the betting favorite. Ryan Puglisi, I think, will have something to say about that. I think he will push Gunner Stockton throughout spring and into fall camp. My personal feel on this is they will probably give this until through fall camp for them to decide who's going to win the job. But Gunner Stockton is right in line with the Georgia blueprint, is he not? Like, Gunner Stockton is exactly what I think the Georgia process speaks to, which is high-profile guy, come in, wait your turn, do the whole scout team thing, be a backup, and then when it's your time to ball, you've had enough time in the system, enough time in the program, enough time within our culture to where when you get a chance to play, you deliver. And I think that's going to be what the deal is here. So him being in the system for a long time, it sounds like based on this intel piece from Pete Nakos, is giving him an edge so far as early as we are into spring practice. Some people might be hearing that at home and saying, well, JD, that's cool. He's been in the system for a while, but Ryan Puglisi's also been in the system for a year. Like, they both have a good grasp, you would imagine, of the offense. Why does that matter? There's a difference between knowing what to do and then being able to play football. Gunner Stockton is at the point where he's playing football. He's not worried about, do I know all the checks? Do I have all the things in line? I'm not telling you Ryan Puglisi is. But when you talk about time under tension, time in the system, Gunner Stockton has got that in spades. And you look at what else Georgia has coming back on this offense. Not a lot. 108 in returning production on the offensive side of the ball. A lot of new faces, especially at wide receiver. You're going to need somebody running the show to be able to help everybody else out across the board. So I think it's very notable as well how people talk about Gunner Stockton within that program. You can get a good gauge for how a guy's perceived by his teammates within the locker room behind closed doors by what they say out front in public. And everyone seems to kind of have a similar report on Gunner Stockton. Whether it's Kirby, whether it's a player, it's dude keeps his head down, dude's a hard worker, not the most vocal guy in the world, but like people respect him because of the way that he goes about his work. Honestly, who this kind of reminds me of, and it's a not necessarily the same comp from a play style perspective, but don't people kind of say the same things about Jalen Hurts? Hey, doesn't talk a lot, but when it's time to handle business, you want him in your corner. You want that dude carrying the football on 4th and 1. He's not the loudest guy, but I promise you he has the respect of every single person. I'm not saying this is not a knock on Ryan Puglisi, but I am saying Gunner Stockton has paid his dues, has put in his time, clearly has the respect of his team, and I think that is absolutely enormous when you talk about being the quarterback at Georgia. So from a play style perspective, the intel piece also highlights that they are excited about Gunner Stockton and what he can do from a mobility perspective, something that is a little bit different at Georgia, really since Stetson Bennett was there. I'm excited with how they're going to try to utilize him on Saturdays running the football. Because at worst now, defenses have to account for him whenever you are getting ready to play Georgia. All right, now when you try to account for the quarterback, that's less attention you can have now on the running back. And Georgia last year was very uncharacteristic in how they ran the football. They were in the hundreds in terms of yards per game. When it came to their ranking, it's not Georgia ball. At best now, he's a legit weapon for you. Especially high red zone, third manageable, all those things like that. That is where 14 can really hurt you and give you an extra element. And I think in modern college football, too, you got to have a guy that can wiggle a little bit, man. That's not knocking Carson Beck, but what Gunner Stockton brings to the table, from what I can gather, totally different beast. And get to the college football playoff, man. You might play Ohio State one round, and you might have to play a team like Oregon the next round. You might have to play Notre Dame. Like, all these teams now have freak show defensive lines. You got to have a guy that can ad-lib a little bit for you. I mean, last year's national title is a great example. Will Howard, Riley Leonard. Two guys that can make something happen with their legs. I don't think it's a coincidence that both those guys have mobility and took their teams to a national championship game. Food for thought. I think you're going to have it. I think it's exciting for the folks at Georgia. One more thing I'll say here. I want to be careful to just totally crown Gunner Stockton right now. I would be shocked if he's not your guy game one. Hear me clearly. But the beauty of going to a place like Georgia is you have to earn everything. I mean, talk about eating off the floor. Any program that talks about eating off the floor, I don't think they're handing out starting jobs in the spring. Just my feel on this. So when you win a job at Georgia, you don't just close the door. You got to slam it shut. You got to lock it and deadbolt it a few times. I'll go back with a great story here. 2023, Brock Vandagriff, Carson Beck, battling for the job. Everyone watches the G Day on national television. Carson Beck is surgical against Brock Vandagriff, who also has a fine G Day, but we all left saying, okay, 15's probably the guy, right? Well, I talked to some folks close to Georgia during that fall camp, and from what I could gather, they were saying, hey, BVG is not going quietly into that good night. He's making it tough on this staff. So my point being is, even if Gunner Stockton is your guy at a spring practice, he's going to have to earn it in fall. He's going to have to win it in the scrimmages, and it's going to be a thing where the competition is just always a deal in Athens. No different at quarterback. It's a big reason why they have a lot of success. Iron sharpens iron, and that's no difference here between Ryan Puglisi and Gunner Stockton. But again, I think it will be Gunner Stockton, and the intel so far indicates as much.